Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar 20 Questions About Jobs. My name is Luan, and I have been in the TEFL industry for almost 20 years. And I can honestly say I've loved almost every minute of it. I'm really pleased to be here with you today and to present this very, very important topic because I know that many of you are either still in the process of getting TEFL certified or have just completed your course, right? And you're likely to have a lot of questions about jobs. That's exactly what we're here for today, to ask and answer those questions for you. And then, of course, also take a few of your questions during Q&A later on. Before we get started, please pop your name and location into the chat so that we can say hi and see where everyone is joining us from today. It's really nice just to say a quick hello before we get going. So while we wait for those names to come through, and let me check that they are none yet. So remember, pop your name and also your location in the chat. It will be lovely to say hello to you. So while we wait for those to come through, a quick reminder that today's session is focused solely on the topic of TEFL jobs, not the course itself, not the assignments. We have webinars for those, just the job-related questions and information. So the entire presentation will be centered around that. I'll also be opening up Q&A about halfway through, and I kindly ask that you hold on to your questions until then. Please only type your questions in once I open up Q&A. If they come in a little bit too early, I may miss them, and I really don't want to. All right, so now we've got the housekeeping out of the way. I do see that many names have come through. It's time to say hello and see where you are from. So we have people visiting from Canada, hello, from England, South Africa, where I'm from, Cape Town, and also Orange County, California, USA, very exciting, Budapest, more South African visitors from the US, Brooklyn, New York, UK, oh goodness me, Nigeria, amazing. I always say that that's the thing about TEFL, right? Is from the start, even before you're teaching students from around the world, you're already talking to people from around the world. And that is such an exciting part of this TEFL journey. So let's get straight into it, because I think that we're going to be covering quite a lot today, and you might have one or two questions as we go along. And to all our attendees who are popping in right now and saying hello, right back at you. Very happy to have you here today. All right, so let's get going then. All right, so 20 questions and all about jobs, right? So when it comes to thinking about work and thinking about that perfect job, right? The perfect location. Your TEFL certificate, as you may well know, gives you that opportunity to travel to countries and places that really excite you. Also, you get to teach people from diverse backgrounds. You get to teach online, maybe from the comfort of your own home. And also, you've got to really think about it that sometimes you might be teaching students that are all from one particular country and they speak one particular language. And in some cases, you might be teaching a multilingual class, maybe working at a language school in the UK or in South Africa. And in front of you, you've got students from all over the world. Never a dull moment in TEFL, I can guarantee you. All right, so I think that when you make the choice to get your TEFL certificate, you're off to a fantastic start. At the heart of TEFL lies travel, but also some of us might just decide, you know what, let's stay home. Let's stay in our pajamas and work from the comfort of our own homes. And that is okay too, because TEFL also gives you the opportunity to do just that. So I think something important is that you've really got to start asking yourself a few questions, right? Do you want to travel? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work with lots and lots of people or one-on-one? What does your typical day look like? And also, what do you need to get out of the work that you do, and also what kind of energy levels are you willing to put in. So these are all very important questions that you've got to ask yourself, right? You've really got to think about what you want. And that's a great place to be, isn't it? So, depending on where you live and what you want to do, there are, of course, a number of factors that you would need to consider. And as mentioned, today we're going to go through many, many questions on jobs and what TEFL can do for you. All right, so part of your decision-making process is, do you want to travel overseas? That is one of the first questions that so many people have to ask themselves when getting the TEFL certificate, right? Do you want to travel overseas? Think about what country you want to go to. Think about what really excites you in terms of location. Do you prefer to live in a big city, a small town? What attracts you to a place? And also, something to consider is the cost of living in that country, in that town, in that particular city. Because as we've seen, even from city to city, things can get really expensive or a little cheaper depending on where you are. So these are all things that you really need to think about, right? And then also, what is there to do when you are not working? Is there an interesting nightlife if that's what you're into? Is there lots of culture that you can explore? What exactly are you able to do once you leave the school and you've got some free time? What do you already know about the culture? Can you already speak the local language? We always say that to teach English as a foreign language, you do not need to speak the language of your students. But of course, if you're relocating to another country, you might need to learn some survival words and phrases in that particular language, right? All right, so how long do you want to, something else to think about is, how long do you want to stay in one place? Remember, you are a guest in the host country, so you need to make the effort to learn about the culture, the local languages, and so forth. It's so interesting, but yes, also so necessary, just to broaden your horizons, but also to show respect to the country that you're staying in. Also think about the food. This for me is something very important, right? Am I going to be able to eat where I'm going to live? So you have to think about things like dietary restrictions. Vegan, gluten-free, is it freely available in the country that you're thinking about? Can you source this type of food where you'll be staying, right? Something else to think about is, am I traveling alone? Am I traveling alone to the other country that I'm going to? Am I traveling with my family? Am I traveling with a partner? Because I think we can all agree that is really going to change the dynamics, the logistics, well, all those details of your entire process, right? So, yeah, am I traveling alone? Am I traveling with people? Will my job allow me to take my young children? Is there an English speaking school? Do I need to enroll my children in an online school? Are there childcare facilities available? Now, I will say that because of the internet and because of a rather large TEFL teacher community, this information is quite easy to find on the internet, forums, prospectus. Different companies have downloadable prospectus guides where you can find all this information. So, needless to say, it's important to find this information, but it's there. And as teachers, yes, we do need to do our homework. Absolutely. And yes, that brings us to the very next slide. It's all about doing your research, right? So asking yourself those questions. What attracts me to a place when I'm traveling? Even think about it in the context of holiday. When you go somewhere, and you land somewhere, you've spent a little bit of time there. Some of us have that moment, I could live here. Well, you've got to ask yourself that question realistically when thinking about relocation, right? And as we mentioned earlier, what is the cost of living there? Because a place might show some lovely salaries online and some exorbitant numbers, yes, but also, what is the cost of living? Is it really going to take my whole salary just to live in the city? Maybe I should look at a smaller town outside of that city Those are the kinds of questions that may have to come up, right? And then also, as we mentioned earlier, what can you do there when you're not working? This is important, teachers, because remember, it's not only about work. Work is important, of course. And as a TEFL teacher, as an ESL or EFL teacher, you are doing such an important job, right? You're changing lives. But when you have some downtime, you also need to have fun. You need to experience things. You need to have a cultural experience, right? So, what can you do when you're not working? And also, do you want to travel while you're teaching? Or do you want to work from home? So, these are some fun questions that you've got to think about in a more serious capacity once you choose maybe a group of countries that you're considering, right? So, the very next thing that we're going to look at briefly is contracts, right? So, when you apply for jobs, companies, schools, language centers are most like, and please, if you're interested in knowing what the difference is between, for example, a school and a language center, please do ask me a little bit later on, and I will go into that with you. But getting back to contracts, right? So most contracts, I will tell you, and even if you look online, you'll see that they are between 6 and 12 months, right? Many of them are renewable, so you'll be working there for 6 to 12 months, and then they might present the opportunity to extend that contract, right? But the important thing is that you read the contract carefully and you look at the following information. You question the number of face-to-face or online teaching hours a week. What is their expectation? Think about it. 20 classroom hours is equivalent to a 40 to 50 hour working week. Also think about whether things like administration and lesson preparation time are paid for, because these things take time. I am terribly slow with admin, not great. So I know that this takes time. Also, I love planning my lessons with a lot of detail and care. So again, this takes time. Is this going to be paid for by the school, the company, the language center, the platform, the online platform that you are going to be working for? And then also, do you have extracurricular activities like cultural or sports activities that you must facilitate after lessons? They might ask you to get involved there. What exactly are their expectations, right? Do you teach from pre-prepared materials and a syllabus, or do you need to create everything yourself? Because I think if you just think about those two options, teachers, you'll realize that the hours will differ quite vastly from working from prepared or pre-prepared materials and syllabus, or having to create everything from scratch. Quite fast, quite different. So that is also something that you're really going to have to question in the contract. Also, something that might come up is, will you have a classroom assistant who is already familiar with the language, the local language? And we've seen this at so many schools where the TEFL teacher comes in to teach English, but there is an assistant to help with the basics, just that basic communication. Will you have that, right? How many different class groups will you teach and what level? Are you going to be teaching A1 students? Are you going to be teaching B2 level students? If that doesn't make sense to you just yet and you're still doing your TEFL course, that will come up. Those are the CEFR levels, and they tell you what your students can produce at a particular level. So obviously A1 would be really low level, and C1, C2 would be advanced and proficiency, and then everything in between. Also, how often will lessons be observed? Now, this is quite normal at most language schools, right? Where you'll have a manager sitting in the corner with a clipboard observing your lesson. Do not be overwhelmed. This is quite standard. But will this happen? And how often? Will you be told in advance? And so forth. Will you have a mentor? right? Will someone be guiding you? Will someone be there to answer questions that you might have? Will this person be on call to you and to you only? So check up on that too. And then also, especially with schools that have got different branches, right? Could you be moved from one school during your contract to another branch? If you think about the language centers, those international language centers, I mean, they've got schools in every city, town, so maybe they might need you to go to a different branch, a different location. Check whether that is in your contract and, of course, whether you're okay with that before you sign on the dotted line. And then also something that you need to consider is what your employer will provide. Now, when you go through these job ads, right, sometimes you'll see accommodation provided or medical aid provided, transport to and from the school might be provided. But again, this will all be outlined in your contract. So accommodation, will they provide it and for how long? Is it indefinite while you're there, or will you have to find your own accommodation perhaps after 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, depending on the length of your contract also? Language lessons, are they available for you? Will you be given language lessons on arrival? Will these cost you extra, or are they included and provided by your employer? And then medical aid, right? So you've got medical insurance, medical aid. Is that provided? Because I will tell you that there is nothing more stressful than getting hurt or getting ill in another country and not knowing what to do. So medical aid is something that you're going to be looking for in that contract. And if you don't have it, you are then in a position to either decline the job offer or research options that you've got in terms of medical care in the area where you'll be staying and teaching, right? Transport. So this could go many ways, right? So you've got to look at transport from the angle of, will there be transport from your home to school? Is it a given that you must take this particular transport? In certain countries, they do want to transport their teachers to and fro. Also, transport in the local area. If the school doesn't provide any kind of transport, bus service, taxi service, shuttle service, all these things, train, what's available, is it safe, will I be able to get around quite easily? So those are all things. And then also go even broader with transport, right? And it's a little bit further down. It says free flights. Yeah, will your flight be covered to this country or not? Is that your own responsibility? So that's also something that you've got to look for in that contract. Is there a performance bonus? If you get a particular class to get a particular percentage, or everybody passes to the next level, is there some kind of reward for you, performance bonus at the end of the year? I mean, these could take any shape or form, but is there one? What does it entail, and what do you have to do to get it, right? All great questions to ask. And then, as we mentioned earlier, return flights to the country and home. Are they available? Is it included in your package, or will you have to pay for these out of pocket? And then a completion bonus. This is a thing, right? So if you've got a year's contract and you finish your year with them, maybe there's something nice at the end of the process for you. But again, this will be in the contract. And if it isn't, you can ask about it, right? This will be provided by your employer, but it does need to be specified in the contract if it is a thing at the company you're going to be working with. And then also leave, right? Is there holiday? Please note that some countries teach on days that you and I would think, the rest of us would be weekending. I recently discovered that schools in Italy even teach on Saturdays, and some countries even teach on a Sunday. Will this be suitable for you? So those are a couple of questions that you might have to ask if it isn't very clear in your contract. Right, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about is agencies. So you'll hear that lots of, when you do the TEFL course or you start speaking to teachers, you'll start hearing about agencies that send you over there. So yes, I mean, this seems like a rather logical step, a logical way to go. So think about the questions that you would need to ask as well. Will I have the commission taken off my paycheck for this, or does the school pay for the agency to find me and send me over there? What are the advantages of using an agency? For example, security, visa assistance, flights might be paid. And again, this is something that you would need to explore. Also, just be mindful that if you do go for an agency and it all seems like a lovely package with very little effort from your side, that sounds like a dream, but what are you paying for that? What's going to be taken off your salary if that is the situation? So you might need to do some in-depth research there too. All right. And then we spoke about the country, right? Choosing the country, choosing the town, choosing the city that you're thinking about. But you've also got to think about the actual school. So, say, for example, you've applied to a particular school or you see an ad for a particular school, you're interested in that school. Now's the time to find out whether that school, before you even apply, maybe, or maybe they've offered you a job. It doesn't matter where you are in the application process. You've got to ask yourself a few questions to find out whether that school is, in fact, a good fit for you, right? So, a couple of important questions to ask yourself would be, where is the school? Is it in the city center? Is it on the outskirts? Is it in the mountains? Where is it? Is it at the beach? That would be amazing. But where is the school? Also, how long has the school been going for? How long has it been open, right? How many students does it have? And also, what courses does it offer? So maybe it's got general English courses, maybe it's got exam preparation courses or niche products like business English. It might even be an academic school where, grade 1 to grade 10. But what does it offer and where do you fall into that whole scenario? Also, how many centers does it have? I worked with a couple of schools in the past, and they've literally got schools or centers all over the world. And it's so fun because you're able to apply for jobs within the family of that school and just see the world while you're at it. So find out what kind of background the school has. Are there other offices? Are there other branches? Are there other satellite schools that you could inquire about once you've maybe finished your contract with this particular school, right? All nice things to think about. And then also, what are the students saying about it? Do the students enjoy being at that school? Do they feel heard? Do they feel protected? Do they feel happy? So check online reviews. Maybe you could even find out what teachers are thinking. What is the culture at the school? Are the teachers happy? Are they treated well? There's a lot of information you can find out online. But remember, you've got to do some extensive research here because you can't just take one review and say, well, that's it. Find out, go onto forums, ask questions, get as much information as you possibly can, right? And then also the last point on the slide, do you need to prepare a syllabus or does the school actually have a syllabus for you? Because I find that it sounds very convenient when a school gives you a curriculum and a syllabus. And it is because there's very little prep that you've got to do. But at the same time, you're sort of restricted to that. And then what lots of teachers do is they supplement and they add and they make things more creative for the students within that syllabus or curriculum. So that's just the sort of thing that you really need to think about if the school tells you it's got a set syllabus. On the other hand, if a school tells you they've got no syllabus and you've got to come up with absolutely everything, well, then it's time to revisit the contract and see where the preparation time is paid for. All right. So I want you to close your eyes for a second, right? And you're in your own home or in your own venue right now, so you can totally do this, right? So you've got to think about, close your eyes and visualize your class. Visualize the group of people you want to teach. I know some of you, but you can open your eyes again because you need to look at the slides. So I know that some of you are thinking to teach young children. Some of you are thinking to teach teenagers. Some of you are looking at teaching adults. So you've got to ask yourself, right? When you close your eyes and you visualize that class, who did you see? Right? Are you comfortable teaching young children, or are you comfortable teaching adults? I'll tell you that when I started teaching, it was my first job was online, and it was one-on-one online, and I had a couple of adult students and also an 11-year-old student. So I got to experience the best of both worlds, really, because I got to gather some experience with adults, but also with little children. Then when I walked into my first classroom, oh, well, it was a mix of everything from 18 to 80, and that was amazing too. So no foreseeing that one, but it was quite an incredible experience. So yeah, visualize your class. See who you want to see. Think about the language level. Do you feel comfortable teaching absolute beginners, intermediate level students, advanced level students? And I always say that each level comes with its challenges, but also its pros, right? Teaching absolute beginners might be a nice natural step for you because you're still growing in your language or your teaching development. So it's always a little bit less daunting to teach beginners, but it can be quite exhausting, and you need to come up with a lot of materials to supplement meaning, right? And the higher you go, the more fluent you can sound with your students. So you've got to consider all of that and see what you're comfortable with, right? And also, yeah, it can be challenging teaching beginners or A1 students if you can't speak even a few words in their home language. Now, in our TEFL course, we do try to dissuade that. We always say to teachers, just depend on English in the classroom, because your students will need to depend on only English. But oh, teachers, every now and then you do, in emergencies or urgent situations, you need to be able to use a couple of words in their language, right? So when it comes to absolute beginners, you need to be prepared that when you say things, those students will not necessarily understand you. Lots of gestures, lots of actions, lots of imagery, but it's fun. All right, something else to think about. Oh, and I hate this part because it's admin, right? But unfortunately, along with traveling to another country comes admin. And I think we've all been there, whether it's been to travel for fun, for holidays, for work, for family situations. We've all had to maybe travel at one point or another, or we've known someone who's had to travel. And yes, there's admin, unfortunately, right? So you need to think about some of the documents that you will need in order to move overseas. Of course, there's your passport. You need that sorted. You need that up to date, and you need that ready. You need maybe a health certificate just to say that, clean bill of health, that you're okay. You also maybe need a vaccination passport or vaccination certificate, depending on what the country asks you for. You might even need a police check, right? Just to say that you're not a criminal and it's okay to let you into the country. And also, do your documents, or do they need to be internationally notarized? So do check up on that. Certain places do demand it, and they're very specific. So fortunately, and I always say thank you for the specifics, because it tells you exactly what you need to do. I will not be able to answer every question about every country later on in Q&A, but this is something, as a teacher wanting to move to a country, you're going to have to look into this and just see what is needed, what is expected from you in order to move to that country. And again, just make sure that you get all this sorted well in advance. You do not want to be scrambling around last minute looking for this, trying to get that notarized, trying to get this done. Try as far as you can in advance to get these things sorted. And I'm talking to myself here as well, because I leave things until the very last minute and then I panic. Please don't do what I do. Start way earlier than you need to. All right. And then also some things to think about: financial considerations, right? If you move to another country, do you need to open up a new bank account overseas? Can you use your existing bank account? Do you need to pay tax while you're working overseas? In South Africa, we've got particular tax rules, but in other countries, things might be a little bit different. So what are the implications there? And also, do you need health insurance in case you fall ill? So these are a couple of things that you need to ask yourself. And I know that we spoke about health a little bit earlier on when we spoke about the health certificate that you might need, and also we spoke about medical aid, right? But this is also falling under financial considerations because these are all things that you would need to possibly pay for, right? So a couple of things you'd also have to think about before you decide on your big move. So that kind of brings us to the end of the presentation. And as you can see, yep, lots and lots to consider before you jump on a plane and enjoy that exciting destination. So there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of thinking about what you like, what you don't like. I think for me, when I think about a new place to visit, whether it be for work or for holiday, climate. Climate is everything, right? Second, cost of living. What is it going to cost to live there? Safety factors. Am I safe? If I'm going alone, will I be safe as I move around the place? And also the teaching conditions. Is it something I can work with, right? So those are a few things you would have to take into consideration. Well, not a few. There've been a bit, right? So I hope it has been useful. I hope that it's answered some of the questions that you may have come in with. But now I am officially opening up Q&A. So of course, this is the time to ask questions about your TEFL job application process, maybe. I know that some of you might have questions about the actual application process, which would be maybe CVs or making a video. Some companies ask you to make videos, model lessons that you've got to record. Those might be all part of the application process. So please feel free. If you've got any questions about those, ask them right now. If you've got any questions about the kind of support we offer at the TEFL Academy in terms of jobs, ask now. Anything job related. I might not be able to answer all your questions, and that might be one, because of time, and two, I might not know the answer, right? But you are more than welcome to also send questions to tutor support. I know I recognize some of the names in the lineup here. So some of you have already been on tutor support. Some of you are regulars. Love seeing you here today. But yes, if I don't get to answer your questions, you can absolutely send them to tutor support, and one of the other tutors will be able to jump in and help you out, right? Okay, so let's see. We've got a couple of jobs. That would be great. A couple of questions. Sanette, hello, Sanette from South Africa. What are the chances of finding a job in a European country such as Germany? Will you only stand a chance if you are already in the country? No, Sanette, I know quite a few teachers already over there. I know 2 teachers who currently work in Italy. One of my ex-colleagues works in France, and then a couple of them work in Germany also, and they all applied from here to go over there. And South African teachers are quite sought after. And I think that, that's because we've got a strong educational background, what people out there call a neutral accent. So, hey, I would say go for it. If you're looking to apply for a job in one of those countries, please go for it. Have a look at what possibilities are there. Take a look at our jobs board to see if there are any companies looking for teachers in those particular countries. And Sanette, a little bit of advice that I can give you is always have a few backup countries, right? So sometimes we set our hearts on one particular country and we feel like it's that country or nothing else, right? Something you've got to remember is that you've got to have backup. You've got to have a couple of ideas in your back pocket so that if this country doesn't work out, or if you don't find the ideal job in this country, you have a backup plan. So please consider that. All right, so we've got a question over here. How early in advance should you apply to the places listed as competitive in regards to coursework completion or certification? Okay, so a lot of our students start applying for jobs even before they get their TEFL certificate, right? And the reason for this is because we on enrollment, we give you an enrollment email, an email to say that you have officially been enrolled in the TEFL course, and you'll be covering this, this, and this. So a lot of employers take that as, part of your application. And what happens then is that they might either say to you, yeah, if you've done maybe your practical already, or you've spent enough time on the course, they might ask you to do a demo lesson, record something, or they might say to you, hold your horses, but we'll keep you on file. As soon as you've got your TEFL certificate, send us the rest of your application. So I would say that this one is a little bit complex to answer because various countries have different expectations there or requirements. But I would say that even once you've enrolled in the TEFL course, you already get a letter of enrollment, which so many teachers are using in order to apply for jobs. Okay. All right. And then we've got another question here. Ilsa, I see your question. I think we're going to need a little bit of time to research that one for you. But let's have a look at this one. Althea, any tips for best online teaching platforms that pay well? Eventually, I'm trying to freelance 100%. Okay, so Althea, we have teachers out there who are already working, right? And the feedback that they've given us is that they're working with platforms like Preply. They're working with platforms like Hey Langu. And there are a few others out there as well, and they're having success. What these platforms do is they will send you some kind of schedule, some kind of booking timetable. You're then able to fill in those time slots that you're available, and students would then check that out. What they are saying really, really helps. What the teachers out there are saying is providing students with a free 20, 15, or 30-minute lesson, right? So these students would then book that with you. You would have a bit of an intro. You would maybe see where they are, speak to them, listen to their level, maybe teach them a couple of phrases. And the reason why they always say offer that free lesson is because very often that lesson is what leads that student to then book with you. So this is something I think is quite important. So over and above the teaching platforms, once you find a teaching platform that you're okay with, then I would say offer that 30-minute free lesson. All right, and then we've got Lucia. Lucia wants to know, is it a good idea to volunteer to get experience? Absolutely. So I would say that my very first job almost felt like a volunteer job because I was paid so little. But I took the work because I wanted the experience, right? So I would say absolutely to volunteer is a great idea, and it's all hours that you can put on your CV. Volunteering, whether you're tutoring privately, you can also put that on as experience. And something that always helps, I find personally, is getting those students to write little reviews or write little recommendations for you. I put that into my profile as well because it always helps. And whether that student has had the lessons for free or whether I've been volunteering, it doesn't matter. It absolutely counts as teaching hours. So you can put those in also. All right, so we have a question from Ashley. Ashley says, hi, I'm looking at working online. Fantastic choice. I do it every day. Any tips on the recruitment process? So Ashley, something I will tell you is quite normal is that when you apply for jobs and they send you an email back saying, yes, they're interested in your application, they might ask you to record an introductory video or even a model lesson, right? And it's quite normal that they would give you the content that you're meant to teach. They might even give you the content that you have to teach, the syllabus, the book, everything. And they might say to you, prepare a 5-minute lesson and record it. This is also quite normal. Sometimes they might say, okay, don't record it, but I will sign in as a student and you're going to be teaching me. Again, also normal, right? As long as it's a nice short lesson, this is quite the norm. If they call you in to teach an hour lesson 2-3 times a week as part of your recruitment process, I would say that is a red flag for me. Then they're just using you as free labor. So if it's a short lesson, they want you to record it because they want to watch it. This is quite normal, the introductory one too. So don't be alarmed when schools do, when they ask you for that. If it's an online job and the school that you're looking to work for, they're far away, my process went something like this. I sent my CV. They expressed interest in my work. They then said, okay, can we have an interview with you online? It was Zoom or Skype back then. I can't remember. And then, yeah, we did the interview. They were interested and they said, okay, prepare 5-minute lesson on modal verbs to an intermediate student, which I did. I recorded it. They had access to it. They asked me to upload it to their particular platform, which was fine by me. And yeah, that was it. And then once I'd done that, they watched this. They said, right, we're happy. Fill in the schedule to show your availability. And within a week, I had students, which was quite exciting. So yeah, that was the process for me. And it's still quite similar today. Although I will say that so many people just have their information on their profiles, right? Like LinkedIn or the social media platforms that you might be on. And lots of recruiters look at those, so they already know what you're about. And also some clever teachers put introductory videos on those platforms, which sort of cuts out a lot of admin time, right? And then they might just say, right, do you have an introductory video? Can we watch it? Because remember, at the end of the day, you're going to be teaching, you're going to be talking to students, right? They want to know what you sound like. So it's quite normal that they might want to see that. If you have an introductory video and they watch it, they might still say, right, we also want a demo lesson done, all quite standard. All right, so Paul has asked a question. Hello, Paul. I have my 10-hour practical coming up. Can I put this on my CV as classroom experience? Right, Paul? So this is part of your certification. So I would say rather just put it on as that. Because remember, these recruiters are well aware that there is a practical element to your course. TEFL courses out there, some of them are purely online, but lots of them, most of them have some kind of practical aspect. So when you put it on as classroom experience per se, they might see it as, well, actually, isn't it just part of your TEFL certificate or your TEFL course? So I would say just be upfront about it. TEFL practical hours, and then list everything done during those practical hours. And I'm one of those weekend tutors, and I know exactly what goes into that course, right? And it's all about watching and then doing. So even though you can't maybe put it on as classroom experience, by stating that it's TEFL 10 hours practical and this is what was covered, already it puts you in a good position. So yeah, while I wouldn't say put it on as classroom experience, I would definitely highlight the fact that it is a practical time. And then also just list. Your tutor on the weekend course will go through all the points of what you'll be doing, and you'll be able to list these then in your CV when you list your 10-hour practical. Oh, Paul, you're going to have a great time. Enjoy that. I'm excited for you. All right, Sanette, I'm going to tell you, get straight onto our jobs board, right? Because the jobs board has got all these websites and they are specific for ESL teaching. Our jobs board, we don't do much else except TEFL, right? So you'll be able to go onto the jobs board, you'll be able to filter according, that's so nice, right? You'll be able to filter the countries that you're interested in. You'll be able to filter degree, no degree, because some countries or some schools would demand that you have one, others wouldn't. So you'll be able to really apply those filters and then see what you're left with at the end of the process. So Sanette, I'm not going to waste your time here. Get straight onto our jobs board and have a look. We've got tons and tons of websites, loads of listings. These get updated regularly. And here's a little bit of advice, right, for all of you. And this is how I got so many of my jobs. When you apply for a particular position and you don't hear back and you don't get the job, do not take that as that's it, that the school will never be interested in me ever again, because that is so not the case. What you've got to remember, and this is a secret that I am divulging today, what you've got to remember is that these schools go through seasonal times, right? So these schools will have very, very busy times, and these schools will also have very quiet times. And they might be recruiting because a busy time is coming. Thousands and thousands of applicants apply for the job. And then, they immediately find one or two or three that they might be working with. And then it looks as though your application has just, been thrown in the bin. That's not the case always. What happens then is that the school goes quiet again and then it goes busy again, right? But instead of posting a brand new job, they will look through some of the other CVs that they received during the first application round, and they will then consider a few of those applicants. I often applied for jobs, and I would just think, okay, that's it. They hate me. They don't want anything to do with me. And then months later, I'd get a call from that school saying, hey, we've got your CV that you sent in January. Are you still interested in teaching? So teachers, don't give up. And also, if you see the school reposts an ad, apply again. Because like I said, lots of people apply. They might just have too many applicants. They might post again because they need a few teachers. It happens. In South Africa, I'll give you an example, but you can adapt this for any given country. We have our high season for students coming to South Africa to learn English from, November to April. That's our high season. Like, we are so busy around that time. And I will tell you that when schools recruit and look for new teachers, they are so in need of teachers that they tend not to worry too much about how many hours or years of experience you might have. If they call you up and they like what you sound like and they like your energy and you've got a strong command of the English language and you can actually teach something to their students, you're good to go. So I would say keep applying, especially during those high seasons in whatever country you are. In South Africa, typically it is summer, and then everybody goes home for Christmas time, and then they come back right after Christmas, right? So that's how it goes here. But there are other high points throughout the year as well, when schools are not so concerned about experience because they need teachers, and they need you whether you have one day or 1 year of experience. If they like what you sound like, you're in. So Ashley says, looking forward to the live TEFL day coming up 22 November. It is fantastic. It might feel like a long day, but I will tell you, it is packed with information. So have you registered already? It sounds like it. It's an amazing experience. Looking forward to seeing you there. All right, any other questions? And then if I could not answer your question, it just means that it's very specific to a very particular country, and I don't know all the answers, and I certainly don't want to give you the wrong information. Please ask on tutor support. I'm sure one of our other tutors will know the answer, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. All right, any other questions? We've still got a few minutes. Also remember, while we wait and see if any other questions are going to come in, that in the TEFL course, sort of towards the end, we've also got some help with CVs, and we have help with how to draft these CVs, what to do, what not to do. There's also a lot of help with the application process, the letter that you're supposed to send. So please have a look at that. And please note that at the TEFL Academy, we cannot unfortunately help directly with your CV. That is quite a responsibility to take on because we've got so many students, right? So we rather offer sort of more generalized assistance with CVs. But I will tell you that even though it's generalized, as in for everyone, it is tailored towards the TEFL CV. So please have a look at that. Super, super useful. All right. Why is it difficult for most qualified Nigerian teachers to get teaching jobs in foreign countries? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It could be something, this is a difficult one. I would say just keep applying. You just don't know what's going to come up. I'm really sorry to hear that it's so difficult, particularly qualified Nigerian teachers. But I would say please don't stop applying. And also, like I said I think it was to Sonette earlier, definitely have more than one country that you're interested in. Have a list, have a few teachers. Definitely don't narrow it down to just one country. Choose a few and see how many CVs you can send out every single day. I always say that when you're looking for TEFL work, when you're looking for a new job, please send that CV out at least a few times per day. And whether this is for face-to-face teaching in another country or online. It might be an option to teach online overseas. Check out that as well, because I know that a lot of our students are going that route. The whole digital citizen nomad, where you teach online, but you're in another country. That might be an option for you. Please explore it and also have a look at our jobs board because it also gives some information on that. Also, to all of you watching here today, we also have webinars, other webinars on jobs. Please have a look and see if any of them are useful for you. All right. Registered. I did last year's day and then amazing. The International TEFL Day is just a day packed with everything TEFL. So at the TEFL Academy, we don't just offer you the course. There's so much more. There are these webinars. There's the podcast where myself and my colleague Mairead just talk about everything TEFL. So listen to that as well, TEFL Unlocked. And then, yes, the International TEFL Day, another one that's really, really interesting. All right, any other questions? We've got a couple of minutes left, so please ask if you've got any more. And if you don't, maybe you're ready to go on weekend. I don't know. Depending on what time of the day it is. In South Africa right now, it is just before 6 p.m. All right, any other questions? I'm going through them just to make sure. But again, please remember that this webinar, like all the other webinars that we record, this one is live right now, but it will be available in a recorded format a couple of days from now. So if you've missed it, or if you've come late, or if you want to rewatch any of the particular sections, you can have access to this webinar and you can watch as many times as you need to. All right. Okay, checking for any other questions. It looks like that might be it. All right. I don't want to miss a question. All right. Well, it looks like we do not have any more questions, and that's okay. So yeah, I think that we're going to finish it here, but something that we always ask you to do at the end of all these webinars is to fill in our survey. And it's not one of those surveys where the person tells you it's going to take a minute and then it takes 20 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. This one is literally just a couple of minutes. So please, we're going to ask you to fill in the survey when you have a moment. If you've already filled it in and it gives you exactly the same page, that's fine. But if you've not filled it in yet, you'll be able to access the page and answer some of the questions. It'll be really, really good to hear from you. So just a reminder that this webinar is available or will be available in a couple of days. And then also all the other webinars are available on our YouTube channel. If you can't find these, send us a ticket to Tutor Support. We'll send you the link and you'll be able to click on this and literally just scroll through hundreds of webinars, all offered by tutors like myself, telling you everything you need to know about the world of TEFL and your course. There are also webinars on our particular assignments. They're very, very useful. All right, so that is it. We have come to the end of today's presentation. Remember to fill in the survey and also to join us same time next week. Different tutor will be telling you a lot of useful information in our next webinar. All right, so stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time. And thank you for all the interesting comments.